Hi there, you join me this afternoon at the Intrabiz Expo once again. I'm here with Stewart, Mr. SEO Jesus himself. Stewart, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
How are you doing today?
Very good.
First thing, it's a good place to start with these things.
Yeah, I had to skip the early breakfast, unfortunately, as I'm not a morning person, but still got here for the conference start.
Fantastic, yeah, it's good to have you here. Great to see you. Now, you've not long come off stage yourself, giving your talk. How was that? How did you find that kind of
Very good.
experience?
No one died.
Yeah, it's always fantastic. So in terms of events like these, do you do many of these kinds of things? What's your perspective on this kind of in-person networking?
Too many. So when I first launched the agency, I had 2 years pretty much constantly traveling to high-level events, and that was my business model. That's my marketing channel. So I'd originally sold a website, so I had the money in the bank and basically decided I wanted to use that to start my agency, realizing I've had this profitable website, let's go out and help other business owners build their profitable websites. So I thought, that's my launch capital. I could just blast that on Facebook ads and may or may not get a return on it. Or I could go to some of these events, and then, if nothing else, at least I've had a good time. But it's also probably my best chance of actually getting decent connections and clients. So within 3 weeks of quitting my day job, I ended up at a mastermind in the Colombian rainforest. So it was a high-ticket event. The idea was we had 2 or 3 days in the conference hotel doing the business talks, and then went whitewater rafting in the rainforest, and then got helicopters back. So that's when I looked at the pricing and I thought, this is pushing it, but therefore the other people there are going to be of a level, and just had a great time. And sure enough, come maybe 3 months later, one of those signed up. And of course, you only need one client to more than pay for a trip like that. So I've tried to maintain that for most of the last 2 years, been all over the world. Lately, I've changed from just being an attendee to being much more of a speaker or exhibitor. So these days, really cutting down actually and focusing more on the quality of the event.
And I suppose I should have started with that initially. Your background, or say your business that you're here for today is in SEO. Could you give, it's something that I think people hear a lot, but they don't necessarily know what's that about.
Yeah, we all know it's a good thing to do, and you're in your website builder, whatever it is, and you've got this box at the bottom that says SEO keyword, and you think, I'm talking about business, let's just put business as the focus keyword. And it took me a while to realize that's absolutely not what you should be doing. And that if people are searching for a particular product and you're selling that product, you want to make sure your website ranks that product. So people think SEO is like this magic fairy dust you apply to the website after you've built it, and that will suddenly make it spring up on Google or whatever. The fact is, Google is always looking for trust, expertise, relevance. So whatever niche you're in, you want to make sure that when people search for that on Google, you're at the top. And generally that comes down to having a page that's full of content talking about, I do this thing, I offer this product. And ideally, you want to get other websites as well to link to you, because that's how Google works. It's the quality and relevance of your content, but then how many times you've been referenced and cited and recommended across the internet.
It's fantastic information to hear, and yet I feel like there's so much more to it. Is it a particularly deep field, if you like, SEO?
It can be.
Can you dive down into that rabbit hole with it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So someone asked me how long I've been doing it, and I say overall probably about 7 years. Only 2 of those years have been the agency. So you could argue that it's only in the last 2 years I felt confident enough in my process to do it for other people. What I didn't realize is loads of people will start an SEO agency and basically learn on the job. So there was some imposter syndrome there. I could have been an SEO speaker much quicker than I actually was. I could have been an SEO agency much faster than I was. The fundamentals are quite simple. 90% of it is just finding those keywords that people are searching for, which you can find with a tool. You could use a free one like Google Keyword Planner, or use a paid one. Writing the content in the right way, and then it's just rinse and repeat. Make sure you've ticked off all those possible queries related to your niche, and then get other websites to link to you. And that can start off with just a simple press release or listings in local business directories. That's probably all you need for a local business. If you're going for a tougher, more national keyword, then you want to start reaching out to other bloggers and saying, can you please link to my content, and opening up that negotiation. So you absolutely can go down the rabbit hole. There's ways of artificially creating those links, which you're not supposed to, but they do still work. I use bots a lot, all sorts of layers and layers. So I feel like for most of my SEO career, I just had this baseline knowledge from free information, blogs, podcasts, YouTube. But I really started leveling up when, to your point about in-person events, I went to events where I met high-level people who are doing the work, doing the testing, and of course they're not publishing it. They're revealing it very quietly to their private friends and network. So a lot of my learnings from the past 2 years have been from those kinds of private groups where we just talk amongst ourselves on WhatsApp, and that's where we get the cutting edge. Now, 90% of businesses don't need to know that, but if you do want to be a world expert in SEO, that's the way. The information comes from your colleagues, not from a blog post that's 5 years old.
Actually, that gets onto. I wanted to touch on what is that part of what makes you different as an agency, as someone who does SEO, because there are, as we talked about, quite a number of people doing it. So is that part of what you say makes you stand out, or are there other factors?
So SEO is massively commodified, obviously, and every business owner gets bombarded with emails saying, I will guarantee you page one for someone from the other side of the world, and for all I know, they could be technically very good. But on one hand, you've got someone offering you $400 a month and someone else offering you $4,000 a month. Which do you go with? So I really bring it down to deliverables. I think there's some really good people in some of those countries. Absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Equally, you can go to London, New York, and find some agencies where they don't have a clue but will charge you a fortune for it. So what I really recommend is focus on the deliverables. That's how I started the agency, where I didn't like the way most agencies will sell you a retainer based on strategy, some smoke and mirrors, and you don't actually know what you're getting. And then 6 months down the line, nothing has happened. And you call it quits, you break apart. Fact is, they've made their margin by that point, and they're probably operating at a 90% margin if they've just taken your money and just have to pay to acquire you in the first place. Yeah. Whereas when I started mine, I was only going to focus on the deliverables. So you need content, you need links, you need the right targeting, and you need to fix anything that's wrong with the website. So because of that, our margin is lower, but we do have much more trust with our clients because they know exactly what they're getting, and therefore the results are actually much better as well. I'm quite shocked when I go through my case studies, and we actually have a really good success rate. And then I step back and remember that it's because we've provided all this stuff that other agencies don't give, and therefore we've taken a hit on the margin, but the quality and the lifetime relationship with that customer is much better.
Yeah, that was actually, it's a really good point there about there's the thing of people generate a lot of leads and can pick work up, but then retaining it over a very long period. Because I suppose, like you say, in many cases, they say, do you charge months to months on it? Do you find that you retain more clients than others? I know it's maybe difficult to quantify totally, but
yeah, it's a tough one. So loads of people do 12-month retainers, and that's the contract. You might have a break at 6 months, or sometimes it's even 2 or 3 years, that contract. Whereas we just do a simple monthly subscription where you can cancel any time. And that is a risk because what you've always find is you've got to manage that relationship with your client. Like I say, I thought I had all this SEO skill. I didn't realize as an agency owner, so much of your focus has got to be on relationship building and communication. So as soon as you take that money from the client, you've got to communicate everything that's going on. And it depends where you get your leads from. So in my case, I've got a big YouTube audience. And because of that, they're very DIY. They're also very focused on shiny objects, which is no bad thing. But it does mean if you've been posting all these case studies saying, here's how I achieved this great result, then they're going to expect that great result. And you have to sort of step back a bit and educate them that that was the exception. So, when you sign up with us, we do say it's going to take about 3 to 6 months to start seeing results. We recommend 6 to 12 months to really reassure yourself of those chances. So it's quite common that we will get people who will churn out very quickly, and we're trying to get better in-house at that education process, making sure that, yes, we do tell people you can just try it for a couple of months and cancel. But the fact is, if they're not invested in the long term, then it doesn't work out and no one actually ends up happy then. So we'd much rather get someone for longer who understands that. We're still not going to do a contract. Some people say, we'll do a contract, we'll never enforce it, but we think it's important to get that in writing and communicate that. So to answer your question, I'd say some people churn out very quickly, which is always unfortunate. But then those who stick around really stick around.
I suppose that's a good metric there because people are seeing the results, so they want to stick around. And like you say, there is always the risk of you do it if there's nothing legally, I suppose, keeping people there. You can have the risk of it's working now after a couple of months. I can leave now.
Yep.
But then of course you're not there to do the job anymore, and so suddenly it'll fall off a cliff. I'm assuming
potentially, or the real bugbear a lot of agencies have is they'll get frustrated in that first 6 months, and so they'll quit and they'll sign up with someone else. By which point, all your work is starting to pay off, and then they've just signed up with this other person. Traffic and sales goes through the roof, and they suddenly think they've just signed up with the best agency in the world.
Yeah.
It's because you did all the work for 6 months.
Right. Oh, is that particularly common? Do you find that, or is that a
I've not really experienced that, but it's definitely a story I hear from a lot of agency owners.
right? Oh, okay.
SEO, the whole game plan is that you've got to be in it for that 6 to 12 months. So you've really got to make sure you're prepared to stick around for that.
That's incredible. It's good to keep in mind. I mean, you mentioned earlier as well about a couple doing things that you say you're not supposed to do, and stuff that's maybe you'd call it a forbidden technique, that kind of thing. But do you find that you attract controversy for being very open about these
Oh, definitely.
processes?
So, yeah, I get people commenting on my YouTube videos saying, dude, you can't say that, you're being too open about this. Lately, Google has been taking action against certain SEO influencers, basically removing their sites from Google, de-indexing them. So that's always a risk you've got to bear in mind. Now, I often push back and say, yeah, when I publish a video, you might see all these case studies, but if I actually reveal the URL and give specifics, then the chances are it's not a site I actually rely on. So I never reveal anything publicly that is actually driving serious revenue for me. So I'll do loads of sort of churn and burn tester sites, but I know as soon as I reveal it on YouTube, I'm prepared for competition, hacking, Google penalties, whatever. So yeah, people push back and say, you're so open about all this. Like, yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I've got loads of other projects on that don't get shared. So that's why I've got my private mastermind group. Just recently, there's some techniques I've been using where other figures and speakers have actually been complaining about me, calling me a spammer and using these more advanced techniques. They still work. So I'm never going to share something that doesn't actually work. And I think for the small business owner or the frustrated day jobber who is just trying to get that extra bit of online income to get out of the day job, then they can't afford to pay a PR agency 10 grand a month to have this proper shiny campaign. They can't afford to pay my rates. So I'm on YouTube, I'm always looking for what are those cheap, effective strategies you can do that do still work, even if the rest of the industry is saying, don't do that, it doesn't work. Here's the evidence, it does work. Some people don't like that. Some people like to position themselves as being the sort of white knight, and I'm the opportunist, if you like. But there's this sort of phony war going on between the black hat SEOs and the white hat SEOs. In reality, those of us who are really invested in it, we just want to do what works, as long as it doesn't harm anyone. That's always my point about it. So I never hack anyone's sites. I don't do negative SEO where you attack other people's sites. All of that, if you're dealing with actual people's livelihoods, I stay away from that. But if it's just the algorithm and there's a smart technique that will get you better results on the algorithm more cheaply, more effectively, then why wouldn't you do that? And I'm going to teach that and share it.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I'd not heard of that side of it. It's interesting to hear the perspective on even, because really it's everybody versus Google, one would argue. But of course, yeah, it sounds like some of them would take it upon themselves to defend the big multinational who doesn't need it.
No, so you heard me say it, exactly. I position myself against certain other agencies, but I learned very quickly, you do not call out any other particular figure who's just doing the same thing as you are, trying to make an honest living. So as you say, we're all in the same game, and ultimately they're your allies. You're not competing. I've got really close friends in the industry who are technically big competitors, but off screen we're all collaborating all the time because it's all crowdsourced. We've all got to work out what's going on with the algorithm. That's our common objective.
So how can people learn more about yourself, what you do, how to get in contact, anything like that?
It really depends where you're at, what your budget is, where you want to spend time on it, or do you just want us to do it for you? Number one place would be YouTube, SEO Jesus. Only started in September. I've done something like 220, 230 videos in that time. So I try and do a video per day, and that's what's given me the meteoric rise I have in the last 6 to 12 months or so. So absolutely join that, but you do actually need to watch and implement it. Whereas if you want to progress that along a bit, if you do have a bit of budget, I've got my mastermind group, so you can join that. There's a small monthly fee. We've got a Slack channel with some really high-level people in it. So any questions you can ask in there. If I don't know the answer, someone else will. And I'll do 2 calls a month on Zoom where you can ask me anything. And we've got various other tools and resources as part of that membership. And then you can go to seojesus.com, click on apply, and that's where we have the done for you service. So if you've got your funnel, maybe you're spending a fortune on paid ads, and you want to get off the ads treadmill and build your own organic traffic that you own, then we can do it for you.
Fantastic. Thanks for talking to me.
My pleasure.